Hey guys, TechTime here, and I'm back with another video. And in this video I'm going to be reviewing the Blu Studio 5.0 HD. Boy, that's a mouthful. Let's start by talking about the display of this phone. And this phone has a 5-inch IPS LCD capacitive touchscreen display, 1280 by 720p at 290 frames at 200 pixels per inch. And viewing angles are pretty good. The display is actually pretty good for the price, of course. And this one actually comes in a couple of different color options like black, blue, orange, pink, white, and yellow. And I'll leave a purchase link below if you guys are interested. As for the platform, this phone runs Android 4.4.2, and I'm not sure if we're ever gonna get an update, but there's nothing wrong with Android 4.4.2, but Android 5.0 is a lot better. As for the CPU, this phone is 1.3 GHz quad-core processor, and the processor actually does its job pretty well for a phone like this. Video playback and opening apps and running them is pretty smooth, but I wouldn't expect running heavy apps on it. And it does actually have a 4 GB of internal storage, but you can use it does support a micro SD up to 64 GB. Now, for the camera, it's an 8 megapixel sensor with the ability to shoot 1080p at 30 frames per second. That's for the rear-facing camera. For the front-facing camera, you have a 2 megapixel sensor camera. As I said before, it is an 8 megapixel sensor that has you get a lot of options with the camera, like HDR, exposure, white balance, and a lot of other things. But the camera, oh man, it's not the best camera at all. It's a pretty disappointing camera. The front-facing camera is actually worse. It's a lot worse, especially the frame drops every time you try to move the camera, as you guys can see. But really, if you're purchasing this phone, you gotta understand that they had to make the phone affordable, so they couldn't put if they would put the best processor, the best camera, then it's probably going to end up being a high-end phone. And for the speakers are actually pretty loud, and the sound is crisp and clear, but there tend to be sometimes it does have some troubles picking up the sound very well, but overall, in general, this speaker is actually pretty good. So the texture on this phone, in terms of how it feels in my hand, this phone actually feels pretty good. The plastic on the back, is pretty good. It feels smooth, but not so smooth that you can actually make the phone slide, because there you can get a very good grip on this phone. So for the battery, this phone actually does pretty well in standby, especially in standby, because the standby time on this phone is actually probably one of the best standbys on a lot of Android devices, low end and even mid-range. So it has a 2000 milliamp hour battery that actually performs really well. But so speaking of standby, by the way, you can sleep with 100% and wake up the next day and you still have 100%. That's how good the standby is. And for talk time, you can use up to 10 hours in 3G, and this one actually does support 4G HSPA+, but unfortunately it doesn't have LTE, which is a big disappointment. But a lot of Blu phones don't actually have LTE, which, I mean, at the end of the day, is just a $100 phone. So no complaints there, really. So on the back of the phone, if you remove the back cover, you actually will see a dual SIM a dual SIM card, and that's a nice option if you're traveling out of the country, or you know, yeah, pretty much if you're traveling outside the country, it would make sense to put a dual SIM, but it works pretty well for the most part. Sometimes it does tend to not pick up one of the SIM cards, but I found this to be easily fixable. If you just reboot the phone, it will work just fine. And speaking of button layouts, this phone has a power button on the right hand side and the volume rockers on the left hand side, which they are very tactile, and when you press them you can actually feel the press, which is pretty good. Speaking of the back cover, when you actually remove it, the button layouts tend to come off, which trust me, you do not want to lose that back cover. So yeah, pretty much this has been the review of the Blu Studio 5.0C HD. But yeah, this has been Tech Time with the review. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe so I can try and improve my content more. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.